Hello, I'm Nick Ward from the National Hospital for Neurology and Neurosurgery, Queen Square in London. I'm here to talk to you about N-ROL, or the NeuroRehabilitation Online project. N-ROL came about in response to the COVID-19 pandemic. We realised that patients with stroke or other forms of brain injury would be discharged home much earlier than normal in order to free up acute hospital beds. Once home, it would be difficult for the community rehabilitation teams to visit these patients, and as a result, we'd have a large group of people with stroke and brain injury who were not able to access the care and treatment that they need at this really important early period after their injury. So we talked to the rehabilitation teams and we decided to set up N-ROL, a form of group online tele-rehabilitation where 1 or 2 therapists can work with groups of up to 10 or 20 patients. These groups provide support for both patients and for their carers. And we have set up groups that target specific problems with movement, communication, cognition, emotion, and even fatigue. We're aiming to support people in their ongoing recovery, but we also want to provide people with the motivation and the confidence that they can achieve the goals that are important for them. We also want to reduce that sense of social isolation or abandonment that patients often feel when they're discharged home early. We really want to provide people with the hope that they're going to get the care that they need and that ongoing recovery is possible. N-ROL is a new way of doing neurorehabilitation, and we're excited to learn from the process because we think it's going to be important as we move forward. The work has been made possible by the fundraising of Emilia Clarke's Say You charity, and we want to say a big thank you to them and to everybody that's donated in order to support us in this important work. Thank you.
Hello, my name's Ben Bear and I'm a physiotherapist, and I'm going to talk to you about NeuroRehabilitation Online, or N-ROL. As Professor Nick Ward has just explained, N-ROL was set up with the support and kind and generous fundraising of the Say You charity, who employed myself and Dr. Catherine Dugan to set up an online service for people post-stroke and post-brain injury who were affected by the COVID crisis. So as this next slide will show you, we received a total of 144 referrals between the end of April and the end of July 2020, which encompassed 23 London boroughs and 5 home counties. All these potential participants were then screened to ensure they were appropriate for online service, but also this enabled us to triage them to different components of the service that were most appropriate to them, but also it allowed us to consider safety considerations for their online participation in exercise, but also it allowed us to gauge their attitudes and understanding towards different components of their stroke and brain injury, so we're able to individualise and tailor the education components of our service. So in total, 92 participants were enrolled, and we completed outcome measures with these participants. We completed the stroke self-efficacy questionnaire and the N-ROLM, which was an outcome measure developed by the service to consider components of the COVID crisis. And 52 people were excluded, and I'll talk about those in a second. And unfortunately, of those 92 participants, 6 people, after having outcome measures completed, were then not able to participate in any component of N-ROL because they either had significant medical problems or family support issues. So we treated a total of 86 patients. In general, on average, patients attended a total of 27 sessions when they were involved in the N-ROL service, with an on average group size of 6 patients per group. So therefore we provided in total 2,332 patient sessions. We offered 3,181, but we had an unable to attend rate of 28%. And I'll talk about those reasons in a second. So important thing to consider is why some people were not able to participate in N-ROL. So a quarter of people did not meet our criteria. We set our criteria as being people within 6 months of discharge from hospital post-stroke or brain injury. Another large proportion of people declined as they did not want to take part in online services or online platforms. Another large proportion of people did not want to take part in group therapy or group rehabilitation. And another significant proportion felt they'd already improved significantly and therefore no longer required our service. This next slide shows why some people were not able to attend some sessions. So some people were not able to attend due to GP appointments, or they were busy with other work commitments, and another significant portion were people had forgot, which also brings us to an important point of our N-ROL service development, where we were able to get volunteers into the service to ring patients to remind them of sessions. This also helped us develop our accessibility of our timetable structure to make sure our timetables had easy to use embedded links, but also made sure that our sessions were fitted into points of the day which were most convenient to our participants. I think that this is a really important, valuable component for anyone setting up a service like this, to have people ringing regularly to help support people with this component. So I was in charge of the physical component of N-ROL, which this slide sets out, and the physical component was stratified into 3 levels of ability, physical 1, 2 and 3, with 3 being the highest level of ability. And the sessions were roughly 30 minutes to 45 minutes, where we worked on strength and endurance and functional task practice in multiple anatomical planes, also working on balance, to ensure that we would try to help people reduce their falls risk, but generally feeling like people felt like they were getting stronger in multiple different directions. And finally, working on cardiovascular fitness, which is also another really important component of recovery post-stroke and post-brain injury. We were lucky to have the support of Kate Ball, who also provided seated Pilates and lying Pilates according to different levels of ability, to work on core strength and also to work on range of movements. And in addition, if people had upper limb impairments, they were then stratified to 3 different levels of ability, and they were then supported by the specialists from the Queen Square Upper Limb Programme, who worked on functional task practice and lots of education in regard to education about how to self-management upper limb rehabilitation at home. If there was a barrier to any components of the physical rehabilitation, such as pain or things like getting on off the floor, I would often do one-to-one sessions so that we reduced that barrier, so people could participate fully. In addition, so generally we found that we had 1,407 physical therapy patient sessions in total that we provided. What we found is we were able to provide 3 sessions per week, so 2 of the either physical 1 to 3, in addition to Pilates. And if somebody had an upper limb impairment, we were able to provide 4. So we were giving really good amounts of physical dosage to people at home, in addition to maybe what they were getting in the community or with their private therapist, or if they were not getting anything, a nice dosage for them to work on their physical goals.
Hello, I'm Dr. Catherine Dugan, and I'm here to talk to you today at World Stroke Day about the talking therapies that were involved in the NeuroRehab online service that we created with the funding from SAMU. As Ben will have mentioned, we screened all patients and they received outcome measures and were talked to about the different types of group interventions that they were referred for. After this, everyone was invited to meet the team. So that involved meeting myself and Ben, the neurophysio, and a neurologist, usually Alex Leff or Nick Ward. Then everybody were invited to 4 sessions of Me, My Stroke and Us, or a brain injury education group. And everybody could ask any question that they had about their stroke or brain injury, about worries they had, symptoms, causes of stroke, lots of different types of questions, and sometimes really unhelpful health beliefs that people were really worried about. Then in the talking therapies, people either received some emotional support groups with me, and we used ACT therapy, so acceptance and commitment therapy, or cognitive rehab that myself and an occupational therapist did, Kate Kelly. And also we offered a caring cafe. So we realized that whilst the stroke happens in one person's brain, actually the impact of the stroke can influence many, many different people. So family members living at home and other friends and support networks. Of course, during COVID, this was really difficult for people who couldn't access those support networks in this same way. Fatigue is a huge symptom after stroke, as I'm sure you know, and so occupational therapists ran some fatigue management groups. And communication. We know that aphasia is a really difficult thing for people after stroke to live with. It has huge psychological consequences. And so we had 3 different types of communication groups: aphasia, dysarthria, and cognitive communication groups. This was predominantly a group intervention, but of course some people needed more one-to-one, and we also provided this at N-ROL. So there may be a reason to talk to the medic about some of the more medical side of things, and so they would have a one-to-one with a doctor. Or perhaps, as Ben will already have said, if some pain or any issue physically came up, he would give them a one-to-one. And similarly with me, if there were any risk or mood issues, then I would see the people on a one-to-one basis or with their family members. In total, we had 925 attendances in talking therapy. But no one size fits all. So what we do know is that stroke can impact on lots of different parts of people's lives, both physical and non-physical. And this graph shows our patients along the bottom, so every bar relates to a person, and the difference of the mix of physical and talking therapies that they got. And as you'll see, nearly everybody got some of both. And we think that represents the complex nature of stroke and also how our intervention at N-ROL dealt with and tried to address all the different aspects of stroke. Okay, and then just more generally, N-ROL reflections. So NeuroRehab online service for stroke and brain injury patients is possible. It is possible to do this online, I think we found. People had access to numerous appointments with a consultant neurologist. We provided psychoeducation through patients sharing their own stories and listening to others. And this really facilitated insight and awareness, and they reported feeling less alone. And it was experienced as normalizing. Oh, I feel that too. I experienced that as well. And some people had never even met anyone else that has had a stroke. So the idea of doing it in a group, actually, they really, really liked. It provided structure and routine through the weekly timetables in an uncertain, highly anxious and isolating time. So every week, Pedro would send out timetables to all the patients, and that really set up a nice kind of structure that people would be able to adhere to and give them a sense of routine and purpose for the day. As I've said, we did this through systemic working. So husbands, wives, sons and daughters attended some of the interventions with their loved ones. Carers from working home, as I've mentioned, could log in once a week for their weekly therapeutic hour. And these sessions, you know, people really shared painful experiences, laughed and cried with each other, and often, as I've said, during their lunch break. And really the feedback from the patients who came to us at N-ROL, they and their carers are really grateful. They really want to raise money or awareness for others. They've reported feeling held and contained. And for all of us, what has been an unprecedented time and a very anxious time for many of us. And they also wanted to remain in touch with each other. So with consent, we've shared their emails with each other, and they continue to offer each other peer support. So what N-ROL has actually been able to do is to create a fully online community rehab service where no one asked or care about anybody's postcode, and no one got more or less rehab as a result. But there are many people that have contributed to this process, and we didn't know how to thank them. So one of our patients thought up that whoever thought this N-ROL up has got to get an etude. So the following on this slide is all the people that have helped us to set up and to execute N-ROL. and we can't thank them enough. We also have to give a big shout out to SameU who provided and actually enabled this project to get going. A special thank you in pink at the bottom is Pedro Douglas Kirk, who we couldn't have run this project without, and that's he provided much technical and psychological support to all the patients he rang every day to remind them and encourage them to come to our groups. So thanks, Pedro. And also to Nick Ward and Alex Leff and my colleague Ben Baer. It's been an absolute pleasure running this service, and we hope that the outcomes and what we find through all our outcome measures that we've collected will show that it's effective and that perhaps more people will get services like this in their own homes. Thanks very much.
SameU asked for your help during COVID. Your fundraising and generosity has enabled the pilot programme N-ROL, virtual neurorehabilitation clinics led by UCL for stroke and brain injury patients.
N-ROL is a form of tele-rehabilitation, so we have 1 or 2 therapists who are able to communicate with probably between 5 and maybe 20 patients in one session.
And up, now we're going to do 5 down, 5 up, down, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, up, 5.
People join into the group remotely using technology that a lot of people will be familiar with, and they speak in real time to a therapist or group of therapists who talk them through that particular session.
UCL is already doing some work with SameU in the field of neuro-rehabilitation and neuro-recovery. And when the COVID-19 pandemic came along, they were very keen to do something innovative and useful. The thing that we identified was that it's likely that patients are going to get discharged from hospital much sooner than normal, and we'd have a large population of patients at home who are not receiving the neuro-rehabilitation that they need. And so it was really about trying to come up with innovative ways that we could get that kind of therapy and that kind of support into people's own homes.
We've got physiotherapists, clinical psychologists, speech and language therapists, and occupational therapists, as well as clinicians.
There are things that you can do with N-ROL that you can't do with standard approaches. Simply we'll be able to reach more people.
The great thing about the group interactions is that people who are socially isolated on their own are able to get that peer support, and also we find that probably their sustained effort is maybe higher than they would be able to achieve at home because there's more people around them encouraging them.
People are in their own homes getting rehab, and they've told us that this is really great. So I think there's something about this in the future, that this may be a different way of meeting people's needs within their own homes, and I think that's really exciting.
We just want to thank all the people who have supported the SameU COVID-19 campaign. With your help, we've been able to get the project up and running and really begin to make a difference to people's lives. So, from all of us, thank you so much.
There's still more to do. Please support us and help us continue our work.